What happens when you store your steel gadgets in your shed along with your pool chlorine chemicals? Stay tuned for the mayhem. This is a bolt screw that I had stored on my old shop in the garage, if you remember from my old videos. And let me show you its twin, either sister or brother. I don't know what kind of gender bolt screw has. In Spanish it will be a male. But this is the guy who was in the shed along with the pool chlorine products. And as you can see, the amount of rust, the amount of oxidation created by the chlorine atmosphere is beyond brutal. The carnage, it was just insane. Every single piece of steel that wasn't covered by oil or even plastic, if it wasn't covered, if it was exposed, it rusted, as you're seeing from these horrendous images of Armageddon and steel desolation. But coming back to the bolt screw, I completely doubt this guy will ever be returned to its former glory. I'm gonna try, but I find it really hard to believe that this is gonna come off with elbow grease. I mean, it's gonna come off, but I think the damage is done. It's just beyond repair, I think. Of course, the main challenge with the rust in this guy is gonna be the fact that this is almost, let's see, 2.5 feet, roughly 2.5 feet. So this will need to be submerged in some kind of container that has that much length. So I'm gonna have to come up with something because, I mean, it's such a small piece in terms of diameter, but the length is so massive. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is create some kind of a tube where I can put this and the liquid in question. Hello? Hello, anybody there? My chamber is going to be made out of 3 feet worth of this 4-inch PVC tubing I got from my local hardware store, and then using conventional PVC glue, we'll do a little plumbing work to attach this cap. For some weird reason it felt a little loose, so I decided to top it off with some hot glue just in case. Alright, so here's my derusting chamber. It has been welded with PVC glue, then I added hot glue, then I added duct tape, and even then I've trust myself so much that I'm putting this inside of a tote. Now, of course, it is standing up, but we all know there is 110 pentillion% is gonna tip. So I am going to add this guy, just to make it even harder. And of course, the last step is some Coca-Cola Evaporust. If you drink this, you're gonna lose your thirst. Not because you're gonna quench your thirst, but because you're gonna die. So obviously don't drink. I should not have put this on a Coca-Cola bottle because it actually looks like freaking Coke. And so in a Houdini kind of trick, I'll put it in and then I take it out. What the heck, man? This is impossible for me to believe. This is the result of Evaporust for 12 hours. This is the exact same screw that was all rusty. If you were to tell me, look what Evaporust did, I could not believe it. But because I did it myself, my jaw is going through the concrete, through the planet's core, and exiting into the atmosphere through the other side. This is just unbelievable. How on earth was all of that rust removed and this looks as good as new? I mean, it's not possible for me to believe. This is just incredible. Wow. Well, I'm gonna do some other evaporusting, but I'm actually curious, what will electrolysis accomplish? All right, we're in our last portion of this experiment of derusting. I am happy with the Evaporust, but I want to try electrolysis. Never done it before. Have watched a bunch of videos. Check out Mr. Pete222. He did an amazing experiment with all possible ways of derusting that he could think of, and he has results. So I'm not gonna bore you too much with details. All I'm going to explain here is what I'm doing. I have my container. This is the same container that I use for Evaporust, but I cleaned it well. So there is no, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. I'm just going to put water with baking soda. Now I have to admit, most people say that you have to use soda wash, not baking soda, but soda wash. I couldn't find that, unfortunately. It's kind of hard to find. Apparently, if I use some of my pool soda, that could do it. But some places on the web claim that you can use either. So I'm gonna try baking soda, see if that works. This is incredibly cheap. I mean, it's like, I think it was like $10 for the whole bag. So we'll give that a try. And then I'm gonna use a power supply. Ideally, you put 12 volts and something like 2 amps. We'll see. This power supply is just going to dump whatever current it can flow, but I can regulate it here. So we'll see what current we get. And yeah, you need basically a liquid that can conduct, because water is, I believe it or not, is an incredibly poor conductor. But by adding an electrolyte, is what I believe is the term of the compound that is going to create ions and allow current to flow. Now, the important thing with this guy is the polarity. This is a polarity-based situation. So you don't wanna get this backwards, because only one of them is gonna get derusted, and that is the one on the negative. So remember, electrons flow from negative to positive, and positive charge, which is basically ions that are lacking an electron or more, that are positively charged, are going to flow from positive to negative. Actually, kind of important to mention, this is a piece of steel that I had lying around, and I have some magnets in here because I don't want this guy just moving. You cannot let both pieces of metal touch, otherwise you're going to get a short. So it will be a short circuit, and that's not what you want. So with these magnets, I'm hoping this guy's going to stay in place. This is hopefully not going to move a lot. And that's the kind of rust that we are trying to clean up. This is not the worst one I have, but it's rusty nonetheless. And I'm positioning it so that by gravity, it remains completely separate from the other. And then I'm gonna clip the negative. Okay, and here's my bucket of water. Now here it's like impossible to find this weird component called H2O. So I hope you can find some. And here is some debate on how much to use. Mr. Pete likes to use his super control method of just putting a bunch. Some people say just put a handful. You know what? I'm just gonna put Mr. Pete's tested method. A bunch. That has to do it, I have to imagine. And we're going to stir it. Okay, before we put in the water, let me show you the power supply. I am at 12 volts, 0 amps. I'm hoping you can see that. Okay, that's way better. 12 volts, 0 amps. Why 0 amps? Well, because air does not conduct electricity very well. I would need to have thousands of volts and an arc for there to be a current, but 0 amps because there is no way of those two terminals to conduct. That's a good thing. Otherwise, we will have a plasma, which is cool in some cases, but not here. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to dump the liquid, and that current should start to creep up. Let's see. There we go. Thank you, science. Wow, that's a lot of current. 3 amps. That means the baking soda works. There is a lot of bubbles, and as you can see on the power supply, we are at 3 amps. Wow, that's a lot of bubbles. Notice the power supply had to go down to 5 volts, and that's because it's basically current limited. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to decrease the current. I want 2 amps. Well, YouTubers, when I started this experiment, I thought I was going to tell you that I was going to end up with my mind blown, but I'm not going to lie to you. Mind blown doesn't cut it. Like, to be honest, I thought this was going to be a futile experiment. These things were not going to work. But wow, it's incredible. So it turns out that when you have rusty stuff that looks like it's dead meat, it can still be rescued. Let me show you the progression here. If you recall, this is how we started. This is pretty much worthless. I mean, this guy doesn't move. So I put it on the lathe, and I did a little manual polishing, and this was a lot of work. still works, as you can see. But boy, this was a lot of work, so I was hoping that Evaporust and Electrolysis was gonna make my life easier. I to this moment, I cannot believe it, it did. This is Evaporust. This is incredible. It feels fantastic. And then Electrolysis, similar results. So it works. I just couldn't believe it. Let me show you the linear rails. So here we see the original part. This one is Evaporust and this one is Electrolysis. But where I am the most amazed is with the screws. I mean, this is unbelievable. Now with the screws, I don't have 4 screws, like, you know, I don't have 4 screws that were busted, and then I did one by hand, one by Evaporust, and one by Electrolysis. Truly, all I had was one busted and one good, and I'm definitely not gonna mess up my good one just to do experiments. But I have to say, this is just unbelievable. I cannot believe that this guy works. Is it as good as it was before? I have no idea, probably not. One thing, this was Evaporust, by the way, so I didn't have one with Electrolysis or by hand. One thing that I regret, however, was that the rubbers in here were eaten away by the Evaporust. So I probably read that or saw that somewhere, but I had completely forgotten. So maybe this would have been better done by Electrolysis. Who knows? But the fact that this guy moves, and it wouldn't before, I tell you, this thing was shot. So the fact that there is a probable new life in here is just mind-boggling to me. Well, YouTubers, a few last words before I wrap this up. I am incredibly thrilled with the results. I am blown away, so there will be more derusting in my future because I have so many parts that need to be derusted, but now I know how to do it. Do need to point out a few things before I leave. Be careful with what you put on the Evaporust. Obviously, in here I noticed that the plastic got chewed up, but I have also read in blog posting studies of stuff like springs that they just snap. Apparently something happens with the metal on those springs, so be mindful of that the Evaporust is not for everything. Do your own research before you dunk your part in. I think if it is like a solid piece of steel, you'll be fine, but do your research and be sure of what you're putting in. Second, I want to say that Evaporust is way quicker than Electrolysis. Probably Electrolysis, you're looking at 1 or 2 days to get something really rusty fix, whereas in Evaporust, I think you can start seeing results in a matter of hours. Of course, you know, I think you may need much more than 4 or 5 hours if it is super rusty, but I don't think you leave stuff in Evaporust for days, okay? So those are the 2 main things that I wanted to mention, but as you can see, we were able to rescue pieces that were basically shot, so this is amazing. I do hope you have learned something from my experiences here and that you have found this video enjoyable. I want to thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel, and I'm going to see you on the next one.